Hello, beautiful people. Thank you for tuning in today. We're going to do a Legendborn recap. This is going to be the part 1 and part 2 in the book because I don't think I can do the whole book in one video. So we're going to do the first couple of parts. If you don't know, Legendborn is one of my favorite books ever. It's one of my favorite books ever. It's by Tracy Deonn. And this is Bree. Look at her. Look at her. Bree is 16 years old. She is admitted to UNC for their early college program with her best friend Alice. And 3 months prior to going to UNC, her mom actually passed away from a car accident. And we're getting to see how grief manifests itself in all the different ways. And so 3 months later, she starts the early college program. And on her first night there, things are already popping off. So anywho, that's the little synopsis, I guess, if you want, of this book. So if you have not read it, please just stop right here because there's no way I can do a recap without spoiling things. So you should just go ahead and read it. Also, just read it anyway, because it's not going to be a complete retelling. We are recapping this, okay? Give you the highlights, if you will. But it's such a really good story. It's wonderfully written. It's a YA fantasy. It's so good. I highly recommend it. This is one of those books that I recommend to everybody. So if you have not read it ever, please go do. And even if it's been a while, I think you should still reread it. I actually just got done rereading Legendborn. And so I'm in the middle of my blood-marked reread. And there's just so many of the small details that either I didn't catch to begin with and didn't understand their significance here, because the way Tracy Deonn writes is so, it makes perfect sense. And it is also as the story goes on, it becomes more complex, but not muddy. You still have clarity. It's just wonderfully written, perfect plot pacing. That's all I got to say about it. So I'm going to do a recap of just part 1 and part 2 because I can't do all 4 parts in one video. I think I'm pushing myself. So that's what this is going to be about. Check the chapter. So as you read the parts, you could come back to this video and just kind of get a recap refresher of what you just went through. But we're going to get started. I hope this works out. Pray for me. And if you like this video, if you want to see more of these kind of videos, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Now, let's get into the Legendborn recap. Okay, so we're going to start out with the prologue because this is really where we are dropped in to where basically Bree's mom died. And we're at the hospital with the doctors and the nurses who are basically telling that her mom passed, right? And it almost reminds me of dissociation a little bit in a way. But even things that happen in the prologue, you're not going to know in the prologue that is significant or that what words are significant here. But if you go back, even after the first couple of parts, if you go back to the prologue, it even makes more sense. There's this one specific quote in particular that me and 1,340 of us have highlighted, but it's such an important quote. So it says, "I listen to these people I don't know use the past tense about my mother, the person who brought me into this world and created my present. They are past tensing my heart, my whole beating, bleeding, torn heart right in front of me. It is a violation." The way that grief is described in here is just so real and authentic. I know the author has experienced their own loss with their mother, but I can just tell how authentic it is through Bree too. And so I really appreciate her for that. Goes on to say, forever, we'll talk later. It's not the same as we'll never talk again. And how can you not be in your feelings automatically in the prologue? Damn. It's a very sobering situation to be in. Tomorrow's just not guaranteed. And how your last conversation with someone might be your last conversation with someone. So we finish out with, "The twine from February closes tight around me like I will never take another breath. But somehow the police officer is still talking, shimmering and shining. The air around him looks alive, like he is drenched in magic. But when your entire world is shattering, a little bit of magic is nothing. So now we're going to go into 3 months later, because that's what happens. It's 3 months later, and now we're on part 1, the order. And so again, like I was saying earlier, we have Bree Matthews. She's Black. She's 16 years old. And then we have Alice Chen, who is her best friend, who is Taiwanese. And they both had applied to get into the early college admissions program. So now we're there. Now we have arrived. Okay. And the first night, they're actually invited by Charlotte, and Charlotte is this girl who went to their high school, but she's like a few years older than them, because things are clicking in my head now that I'm saying things out loud. She was even, I believe, admitted into the early college program. I think she did it for 2 years, and then she officially became an undergrad at UNC. So she's over here inviting these girls to come to the Eno River Quarry, which is like a tradition. People come here and jump off the cliff first day of school, yada yada woo. This is also where we meet Evan, Charlotte's boyfriend. If you know, you know. Anyways, I was not a fan of him in this first chapter anyway. Whatever. Anywho, we get to meet him, yada yada woo. I think they go off to like watch him like chug a keg from a keg or something. Anyways, Alice goes, but then she's like, Bree, are you coming? And Bree's like, nah, I'm good right here, And Bree is kind of, curious about jumping off the cliff and blase blase. And this is also where Selwyn Kane and Bree Matthews have their first interaction, their first conversation. And it's really just about like, just like small talk kind of thing. But also Sel mentions in here, like, do you feel something when I look at you? And I feel like that's like a clue, like, do you feel something when I look at you? Like, who are you talking to, Sel? Like, we just met. Anywho, some football players break out into a fight. People are talking about, hey, we need to go before the cops get called. Well, the cops get called. Long story short, they show up. And in the middle of all of this, Bree starts to see something shimmering above the tree. She starts to see basically what we later find out to be Shadowborn. She sees that. And that's not common for like regular people, once-borns, to see. Okay. So off top, we already know that Bree is not like the rest. She's not like a normal once-born average human. She can see things that Sel can see. And then we also meet Victoria, known as Tor. She can see it too. In a way, this is attributed to like her grief. Like I think we might first write it off of like, how grief can really do a number on your mental. And so I think we just kind of think this is a part of that. And then we also get to like smell Sel smells like something. He smells like smoke and cinnamon, and I love cinnamon, and this sounds great. Later on, Bree is leaving the party, needs to find Alice. I feel like Sel or Tor, whoever, is like trying to like make her leave and like, y'all need to go. And it almost feels like it became like it became her own thought, but it wasn't her own thought initially. It's like compulsory. So this is the first time we witness Shadowborn, and we get this feeling, this compulsory feeling. And she sees ether for the first time. I think Tor is like wielding a sword, and this is also where we learn we learn more about like Merlin's and King's Mage, and then we're beginning to make the King Arthur connection here. And then the police showed up because, again, like I said, some football players got into a fight, and we got freaking Deputy Norris, who gets on my last nerve. I'm not a big fan. I don't know who is a fan of Deputy Norris, but he's just, like, why are you here? You're annoying. I called him a bitch in my notes. He got Alice, he got Bree, he got Charlotte at the cop car. He's like, Charlotte, you off with a warning. Get out of here. I imagine he only did that because she's an undergrad, but when you have these two EC students who are clearly underage, for sure underage, like dangerously underage, I guess you have to take him to, you got to report these things to the dean. Even the car ride, he mentions like, oh, early college, that's like a hard program. My kid couldn't even get in. How did y'all swing it? And they're like, merit, like, like, dude, like, we actually are smart, we're talented, and we try hard. I don't know why your kid can get in, but that's why we got in. And he just kind of alludes to like, oh, like, you got in because of affirmative action kind of thing. And I think, again, we have that realness here because that's what a lot of people think, like, oh, they just couldn't fathom that you're actually smart enough and actually smarter than their kid. It had to be you got in because of affirmative action. No, sir. We got in because we just that bomb. Okay. Like, we're actually that smart. Like, respect it. Anyways, that's the kind of vibe he's given. As they're strolling down, Alice and Bree are in the back of the cop car. As they're strolling down, he sees Tor and Cell. You know, they kind of talk, and this is why we kind of get the air of he knows something that Cell and them knows, but Cell is also like higher ranked than this deputy is. And you know, Alice is kind of pissed throughout this whole thing because this is not what she imagined her first night at EC to be. She came here to get her study on, to do well, make her family proud, and be in the back of the Deputy Norris's cop mobile was not what she had in mind first night out. Okay, so she's pissed. Okay, so they're not even speaking. Her and Bree aren't speaking right now. So then the next day they have to go to the dean. The dean is very much giving the same kind of like Deputy Norris vibes, like, okay, sir, like, chill. Good news is they did not get suspended. They didn't. The only thing is that they had to get a mentor to like basically babysit them, more or less. So that's where Bree gets assigned to Nick Davis, who becomes her mentor. During all of this, though, you know, Bree is putting together on how someone used magic to hide what really happened to her mom. Again, you know, when we talk about like the shimmering and stuff around the cop, we're seeing some weird stuff first night at the school. Like she just really believes like it's not exactly what it seemed, and it's not exactly what they told her. Like someone's trying to hide something regarding her mom's death, and we need to get to the bottom of it. Meanwhile, she's beefing with Alice because Alice like, we're not here to do all this other crazy stuff. We're not, and you over here doing slacker stuff, and it's just not a good argument. So Nick is like a second year early college person, so he's done this before. He knows what it's like. And so yeah. So then, you know, Bree tried to avoid Nick. She really does try to avoid him. She really does. She starts out avoiding him, but by the end of it, she starts, and then she ends up trying to seek him out. So in the middle of all of this, though, they run into their first partial corporeal hellhound. When they're partially corp, it means that once-borns again can't see them, but they can still do harm to real living flesh. So that's exactly what happens. She realizes that Nick is getting cornered by this hellhound. She tries to distract the hellhound. She also ends up getting injured, but Nick takes her back to the lodge, and that's where we meet William, who is like a healer. And he heals Bree. I don't know. I love William. William has a special place in my heart. He's awesome. He's cool. I love William. William is cool. And so, again, we're basically on a learning journey. We're learning more about Shadowborn and like them being demon kind. And they come to the real world through the gates. And the whole point of like Merlins and all these other things is that we're supposed to hunt down the Shadowborn and save humanity. You know, we start discovering ether constructs. You know, you can you can like make shields, you can make weapons, things of that nature. This is where, you know, she kind of confesses to William, I believe, where Cell did something to make me leave and forget, but after a minute it didn't work on me. So again, she's not a normal once born. We realize there's something special about Bree, and it's nothing that like it's not common for Bree to be able to do that. Mesmered memories do not come back. Like, so once they're gone, they're zapped, they're out of there. Like there's no, you know, undo delete around that situation. And this is also the time where Bree remembers that a man just like Cell, which Cell is a Merlin, lied to her about her mother's death. And a rising rage burns that fear to ash. I think this is on page 67. Well, my page 67 on my Kindle. And then we also learned there are 5 secret orders associated with the university, and one of them is the Round Table. So this is where we start getting more of the Knights at the Round Table, King Arthur retelling. We're getting more of that intertwined here. I think she's telling this to Nick or she's telling this to Will. You know, I can't remember exactly. Don't quote me, but this is discussed in the book. And essentially, you know, don't let Cell know what you can do. Don't let Cell know that his mesmer isn't working on you. So play along there. And then I just feel like we get more of this recurring theme of just like, of not feeling like we belong anywhere, like we're misplaced. And I feel you. But now, you know, after Bree has been healed and after all this other stuff, and now you just see another monster like the second day. So Bree wants more answers, so she wants to go back to the lodge. So she ends up going to the lodge. I think Sarah ends up opening the door, and and who you hear, what you hear, who you see, you know. And Bree's basically like, you know, I'm here to see Nick. And we didn't realize at this time, but for her to say Nick and, you know, sponsor, like everyone is like oohing and ahhing, okay? Everyone is like, what? We learned that Merlins are the order sorcerers. Their affinity for ether is so strong they're essentially super soldiers, trained from birth, assigned to posts, sent on missions to hunt rogue Shadowborn, keep once born population safe, close gates. Merlins are authorized to do whatever it takes to keep the war hidden. This is also where we kind of talk about, like, would a Merlin kill someone? Basically, yeah. So, you know, Nick and Bree are kind of talking right now because, you know, Bree is explaining to why she wants more information. She wants to know what happens to her mom. She thinks a Merlin was involved. She's trying to get to the bottom of it. Nick is giving her the lowdown about how this whole thing kind of works. You can't just waltz up there and ask the Order of Regents what's what, because the Order of Regents is ones who like send Merlins on their missions and like runs the order basically. And you can't just waltz in there as a once born talking stuff, because again, they have oaths and they have secrecy and all these things. And, you know, we find out Nick is Legendborn, you know, that, and he previously denounced his title of Legendborn. He didn't want nothing to do with this. So when she came and said, oh, you know, I'm here for Nick is my sponsor, blah blah blah, like people were shocked because they're like, oh, he's back, you know, after not dealing with this, you know. So finding that out, you know, she wants Nick to go talk to them on her behalf because he's Legendborn. So Bree wants him to go talk. He, you know, we found out he renounced it, you know, and we found out Sel is one of the most powerful Merlin in years, you know, in a generation. And that's when we understand, like, okay, well, if we go through with this, I can only bring you in as a page, right? Because there's levels to this. I bring you in as a page. I'm your sponsor. There's also three trials here. You also have to take an oath, with this is like bonded by ether. We start to figure out how is she able to not come to like Mesmer and all these other things. So we're starting to put those pieces together as well. And so Nick ends up deciding that he's going to reclaim his title. So that was part one. We're getting the lowdown. We're getting the information. Part two is Discord. And I really love when a book like works in not only the title of the book, but like maybe the title of the parts into their story. Like maybe this just comes up normally and then they title it the whole thing, but I like when there's some kind of representation there. So anyways, we find out that Martin Davis is Nick's dad, and that's important to know. Don't forget who that is. I already told you about the Merlins and who they are. You know, they have oaths to the highest reagent, and reagents are in charge of assigning them their duty. So everything around here, oaths is kind of like their contract. Like, and if you try to break those things, you're going to be hurting. You might pass away. Like you're going to hurt because you defied the oath. Okay. But, you know, again, reagents have functional control over this order. And yeah. So, and then we also find out who Martin Davis's king mage is, and that's Isaac. And I hate Isaac. Isaac gets on my last nerve. I hate Isaac. Also, where we get to our first glance at the Wall of Ages, which basically is like a family tree, lineage tree. You get to see all the 13 families, right, across the campuses, because not all 13 families and their scion and their squires and all that are at UNC. Like they have different chapters and all these things. So you get to see like the 13 bloodlines, and you can see it all comes down. They all have like their little gems and their jewels, and it's all immaculate and perfect. And then you get to Martin Davis, and you get to his King's Mage on the thing. And it is scratched all the way around it. Now, I have my own theories on why this is scratched all the way around it, but we're not there yet. But just note, that there's probably a good reason why this is all scratched all the way around it. I think that's around page 141, again, according to my Kindle settings. But then Bree and Alice have another tense moment. You know, something breaks in Bree and she discovers and releases her red flame for the first time. You remember this cover, right? There's reasons why this cover looks like this. And I bet you this red flame is from this moment right here. So this is the first time this has ever happened to Bree, 3 months after the passing of her mom, and then being at this campus is making a lot of things happen. And then having that tense moment with Alice, I think really something broke in her, and now she got red flames coming out. We also realize that Nick and Bree, you know, Nick is giving Bree fuzzy feelings, and they kind of like each other, and I think it's cute. And I'm trying to figure out, this is not a spoiler, but as I did my reread, I'm trying to figure out, I like Nick. So at what point did I go from Team Nick to Team Zell for Bree? At what point did I go from Team Nick to Team Zell? I bet you that'd be very evident in Blood Marked, and I will let you guys know then. But yeah. So, and of course, we continue to learn more and more about the order. I'm glad that it's explained in this way. So it's like very clear and it's like not super confusing. So you have a scion and they have a squire. So for instance, you have King Arthur. Again, he's not alive, but you have King Arthur, but then you have a scion and then you have a squire that the scion chooses. And the scion and the squire, like once the scion is awakened by their knight or whatever, the scion and the squire can also have like shared enhanced abilities. So you get powers when you become an awakened scion. Anyways, but we're not there yet, but just so you know. We also know what vassals are. Vassals are once born outsiders who are sworn to the code and the order at large, but they pledge to be in service to one of the original 13 Legendborn bloodlines. So they know about Aether, they know about Shadowborn, but they don't fight in the war, you know. Essentially, it's like a mutual beneficial relationship. And usually vassals are using their benefit of being involved with these people at all. It's like a money and power dynamic, you know, like reach higher titles, like ladder climbing. And so this is kind of like, oh, so we think that maybe Deputy Norris, you know, he's not in the trenches, but obviously he knows something. So it's alluded that maybe he's a vassal. We also meet Witty, James Whitlock, line of Tristan, Sarah's page, which means when you're a page, someone could sponsor you. And Sarah is Legendborn. Yeah, I think Sarah is a squire. Is Tor a scion? I think that's how that goes. We also meet Greer Taylor, who is Russ's page. We also meet Vaughn. I don't like Vaughn, but Vaughn is also Fitz's page. And if you know, you know why I don't like Vaughn. You know why I want to square up with Vaughn. If you read it, you know. Anyways, so needless to say, there's 5 new pages. Greer, Witty, Bree, Vaughn, and Lewis. Oh yeah, I remember what happened to Lewis. So the pages have to swear the oath of fealty to officially become members, because again, it's a secret society. You got to like, you know, hold it down. And so they can only do that if they're considered worthy. If they're not considered worthy, they're mesmerized. They're mesmered and sent away. So you don't even know this happened anymore. So since Nick has basically agreed to help Bree on this mission to find out the truth about what went on with her mom's passing, they start coming up with a couple of rules of what not to do, what to do during their secret arrangement kind of thing. And let me just tell you, this whole time, Sel is a low-key hater. Sel is like, I don't know. Sel is just kind of like, I saw you the first night, Bree. The next day, you had to be healed, and you in here again. And now you want to be a page, and now all this other stuff. Like, I think you are up to something. So he pretty much thinks she's like Shadowborn or Demonkind, because there is a Demonkind that can mimic being a human. And so after seeing her 3 nights in a row, he's like, you're, I can't say it right, but a grossal. Crucial. Anyways, he does not trust Bree, and he doesn't believe in coincidences, because he's like, why are you here? Why am I seeing you so much? What are you trying to do? And with all this other craziness going on, why are you here? Why? So we go through all this, and you know, Martin Davis, he does this little speech and he's talking to Bree and all this other stuff, and he just really gives off fake nice, like nice nasty. Martin Davis is nice nasty. Like he just is. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. That's how I feel about Martin Davis. At selection, we learn to earn the title of squire, and and you end up taking the colors and the sigils of the scion. State your name and family. Kind of thing. So this is kind of before, you know, you get the pages round up. We have all this thing. So you need to state, you know, your name and the set that you claim. Like you have to. And so everyone else have like these long, like, I'm the line of this and this. And Bree doesn't have that same type of lineage to call out on. And is, again, it's just so many layers to this. It's like a beautifully peeled onion, like the way that this is written. But essentially, this is where we find out that Nick, not only is he Legendborn, but he is the scion of King Arthur. Other people knew this, which is why they were gagging. They were gagging that he was back because he didn't want no parts of this. So then later on, you know, grant the power of sight, you know, to see Shadowborn. Bree's oath of fealty did not take. Okay, you know, they did what they had to do to make sure that that oath did not take. This is where we hear the line is law. And then, of course, without a doubt, there's some hellhounds that ironically pops up in the middle of this. And we're like, good God, what the hell is going on? This is also where we find out that Evan is a part of the Legendborn. Go figure. Because when I first met him as Charlotte's boyfriend, I'm like, why are you here? Like, why are we talking to you? Suspicion grows as ushel, hellbound, etc. They would be gathered here. This again, Cell blames Bree. Like, you just keep popping up and we keep getting shenanigans popping up, and I just don't think that's coincidence. And Cell is not digging it. Cell is not liking it. But you know what? Sarah always welcomed Bree with kindness. I think Sarah is Venezuelan. So they're kind of getting a kinship because it's like they can understand and relate to each other in a way of not being fully accepted and not fully belonging amongst the other people here, because not everyone is welcoming them with open arms. So Sarah says, you know, up until this point has always shown Bree acceptance and kindness, which I can really appreciate. You know, we continue to learn more because we learn that knights can call on their scions from early as 16 years old. That's partially why early college or EC was manufactured, so that those a part of the lineage and yada yada can train and work with each other as early as they can, because then if they're called or awakened, they're ready to go. And the lines follow the original Round Table's chain of command, and that rank determines in which they are awakened. So things will severely pop off if King Arthur has to be awakened. I'll say that. And usually the lower ranks are awakened, you know, and it happens and they handle it. But the higher we go up, it's like stuff is really about to pop off. Like, it's not good. Oh, and then later on, back to Alice and Bree, you know, all this weirdness happening. Bree not being around, taking these slacker classes and all this other stuff, and with the recent passing, Alice, you know, is like voicing her concerns to Bree's dad. So then Bree's dad talks to her, and basically he found her a therapist, and this therapist so happened to go to the same college at the same time as her mom, and they knew each other. So they're gonna meet twice a week. You know, her dad set this up, and it's like, no, you're gonna go see that therapist or you're gonna come home, because this isn't like you, and you know, we're both struggling, but like we can't just let you just continue this way, basically. So this kind of puts like an idea, like, what? Like, she knew my mom? Okay. So she agrees to go see the therapist, who we later find out is Dr. Patricia Hartwood. But the trials start in here as well. Bree meets up with her therapist. They end up meeting like in like this botanical place, right? And this is where Bree finds out like her mom has special abilities too. I think her mom was a wild crafter, and this is where Bree is figuring out like the difference between auras and ethers, because I think there's like a bench or something, and it was surrounded by things, shimmering things, and you know, she could see things and stuff like that. And I think this is where we figure out like ether, like where did you learn that word from? Like who did you hear that word from, kind of thing. Those who use the word ether are not your people. They're not your mother's people. They're not our people. And you know, blood crafters, right? And what does that mean, you know? And I think we just kind of figure out, Dr. Patricia realizes that even though Bree's mom didn't necessarily share things with her, she also didn't share things with her daughter. And so she kind of has to consider, like, how far deep does she want to share what she knows about her mom, because she kind of just wonders, like, if your mom didn't tell you, there had to be a reason why. Yeah, so the first trial happens. Nick is concerned. Chemistry sparks a little bit. Bree spends the night, and they talk about Nick's mom. Yeah, they talk about Nick's mom, because remember, if you read it, I'm going to talk to you like you've read it, okay? But Nick's mom basically wanted to basically run away with Nick because, you know, Martin Davis is over here trying to make him as prepared to be King Arthur's scion as possible, and just kind of going overboard a bit. And so Nick's mom just wants to take her child and get out of there. Nick's dad was concerned, so they say, so he ends up calling the order. They find her, and I think they mesmered her so far back that the next time that Nick and her ever ran into each other, she didn't even know Nick was her son. Like, that's how much they mesmered her. After all that happened, they end up, Martin is trying to prepare his son to be the scion of King Arthur, right? So he also got him a King's Mage, aka Cell, and got them to bond or assigned King's Mage over him at a super young age. Yeah, and then Nick and Bree kiss. And then later on, like, Bree goes to the cemetery with Patricia Harwood. I know this is all over the place, but I want to make sure I capture all the top things. But she goes to the graveyard, all of there, and I don't think they do what I'm about to say until part 3. So anyways, thank you for watching this little bit chaotic recap of part 1 and part 2 of Legendborn. We will do part 3 and 4 in the next video. Let me know in the comments though if you're really excited for me to go over the last 2 parts of Legendborn, and let me know if you do want me to do a recap of Bloodmarked. And I was also thinking, for Oathbound, I want to have a read along on Storygraph, but also I want to have like a more in-depth, like maybe chapter by chapter breakdown as I read Oathbound. Let me know what you guys think about that. But that's it for part 1. So stay tuned for part 2. Make sure you subscribe, and until next time, peace.